and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for Jingle Bells, I know there's a week to go, but it's almost Christmas time, so something that rhymes with snow. Anyway,
sounds good.
Sounds absolutely brilliant. The person that's interrupted me is not even waiting to be introduced. It's coming up for Christmas time. It's obviously a time that's important for both online sellers, and you've probably heard from our episode with Games Quest, but it's also important for the retailers, the bricks and mortar retailers. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be bringing in a couple of people that sell online and sell their wares online round about the Christmas time. So joining me from the Settlers Cafe, I have got Shazz, or Shaheen, Savarnejad, and hello sir, how are you?
I am good, sir. Thank you very much for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
I thought it was about time. We speak to creators, we speak to designers, we've spoken to artists, we've spoken to the guys that do the manufacturing, we've spoken to the guys that do the crowdfunding stuff, we speak to Kickstarter people all the time, and it's very rarely that we actually speak to people who, at the end of the day, are maybe bringing in their Kickstarter pledges, or they're in contact with their local reps, you know, bringing in the latest kind of hotness. And with it coming up to the run up to Christmas, I thought it'd be nice to get somebody like yourself who is, I guess you could say, maybe joining the kind of the wave of kind of enjoyment of board games at the moment. But obviously you're in probably one of the toughest sides of that, which is the kind of the end kind of retail.
I hope to bring a slightly different perspective to things. As a retailer, you know, but there's definitely things that we see on the ground that might differ from what you may have heard, or my experiences might even be different to another retailers, for example, whether we're on the ground or online. So by all means, my experiences are my own. I can't speak for other retailers, but I'll certainly do my best to give...
He does. He speaks for all retailers. We're not speaking to any other retailers at all. It's if Shazz says it's true, then that's what it is. All hail Shazz.
Power. King
of bricks and mortar. King of bricks and mortar. Here, how shall we serve you, Lord?
Oh my goodness, I'm looking forward to this. I'm not used to this.
The reason that we do this is, well, first of all, we say hello to everybody out there. Hello, everybody that's out there. The reason that we do this is because there's not enough podcasts out there about board games talking about guys in retail. It's Kickstarter after Kickstarter. That's all we hear.
I think that's fair. So, sometimes you get the odd wee message from one of those kind of Kickstarter-focused podcasts, but I think that's absolutely fair. You know, so yes, please. Let's by all means, I'm happy to discuss it. Yeah.
And the second reason that we're doing this is because Christmas is round the corner. I am on the naughty list. I'm aware I'm on the naughty list, so I'm trying to do that Bill Murray Scrooge type thing where I'm trying to, you know, live my life vicariously through other good people in order in the hope that I might end up on the good list.
You might have contacted the wrong person.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Do you want to start off by telling us, I mean, how did you get involved in the kind of the pressed and printed trees? How did you get involved? Tell us a little bit about your history. Because we're going to, as I say, we're going to have a little bit, we're going to have a look back at the straw of the past before we look at the wood of the present and then the bricks of the future. That's a terrible Three Little Pigs type reference.
I was going to say, the Three Little Pigs kicking about somewhere. Just like wondering.
It was just a swang for a home run, and I, ended up hitting a small child. So it's one of these things. But how did you get into the hobby in the first place, Shaz?
Well, let me tell you a story about a big bad wolf. It was... Nah, I'm joking. It was... so little Shaz started gaming when he was quite young, actually. So I wasn't in the country until I was 5 years old.
All right.
And from there, my background is my father's Iranian and my mother's Scottish. So we lived in Sharjah in the United Arab Emirates. and all sorts of jazz. But I wasn't gaming or anything around that time anyway. And what really kind of captured my imagination when I was young was my brother played all sorts of the MB / Games Workshop games. So we're talking Hero Quest,
yes.
Space Crusade, etc.
Yes.
Those and the Fighting Fantasy books, the green spined books by Ian Livingston and
yes.
Jackson, and so those really captured my imagination. And I think what really took it further for me was when I was maybe just like a teenager, and I started showing those games to other people. That was what really captured my imagination. And what took it to the next level actually was around the corner for me. I was blessed to have one of, I think, the only live action roleplay props maker in the country at the time. And his kids used to run around beating each other up with rubber and latex foam swords and stuff.
Yeah.
And from there, that just like sent me into the stratosphere. I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And from there, I got exposed to LARP, then backwards into tabletop roleplay, so D&D, then all sorts of other stuff. And from there, it's just kind of boomed. But I think my greatest joy from that was to just show other people games and see how they react to them and things.
You've always been more of a kind of, I mean, I joked about living my life vicariously through yourself, but obviously it sounds to me like you're somebody that, the real joy for the tabletop experience comes from taking somebody through the motions
100%.
And showing them how to play, and then seeing them being kind of happy and understanding and grasping the rules and having that kind of eureka moment where they completely understand what they're meant to be doing, yeah?
I think it's a shared happiness for sure, because for me, even in competitive games like card games and stuff, I always got very frustrated because I was in quite a rural area in Blackwood at the time in South Lanarkshire, and there weren't many other card gamers besides maybe a small group of friends. So even playing with them, I wanted to get really good at the game, but I could never or different games and couldn't really do that. I couldn't never take it to the next level because the community wasn't there and the shared aspect wasn't there. So for me, it's certainly all about that shared delivery, that joy together, that experience. And I think that makes sense, looking back as to why now I am a brick and mortar store owner. Okay.
Before you jumped into kind of the bricks and mortar, were you building up quite a reasonable collection? I mean, were you already, sure, off the back of, obviously playing with your brother, then playing with your friends, were you kind of down the line of kind of like amassing a decent sized kind of collection before you jumped and went, oh, I could make a business out of this?
Not really. To be honest, what happened was when I was young, we had all these collections, and then, the nemesis of board games came along, the mother or the father trying to clear out the attic, sold all those games. So that happens. It's one of these things. So that kind of happened for the most part with all my old MB games, like Hero Quest and stuff. But I never really, I'm not a person who kind of hoards stuff. I just have never been. One of the first years when the shop opened, actually, all of my amassed stuff, I gave it away to charity and we raised it for charity. So really, I don't have a huge collection of my own. And to be honest, I'm quite content with that. I don't like hoarding things, if you know what I mean. Which is probably quite strange for a gamer, to hear from a gamer that way.
I don't know, because... Well, to be perfectly honest, if you're doing something for a living, then I guess you get to sample all the delights of the cake shop kind of every day. 100%. That it's probably easier for you to if you're enjoying a game because you're playing a game, I guess it would be nothing worse than going home and saying you're having 60 or 70 games on a shelf and knowing that actually you sitting down and maybe playing them that night is probably going to be something that's not going to happen. So
it depends on the game, I guess. If it's a game I'm really enjoying, I'll happily take it home with me for weeks. But the truth of the matter is that game shop owners, and I think I can speak for other game shop owners in this, is that the vast majority of them just don't have the time to play as many games as they'd like.
Yeah.
Even store owners who don't own a very highly diverse shop like mine that has a cafe and comics and stuff in it, I think that most game store owners just have a lot of their hands full running the business. So for me, I don't get to play nearly as many games as I used to. But again, like I said, the joy for me is sharing it rather than sitting, playing it, and whopping the pants off people, you know? Although that is pretty fun too.
So, I mean, out of your collection that you've got just now, is there anything that you're absolutely adoring, that you're dressing up in lovely clothes and taking out for walks and leaving it little notes on the fridge and all those nice stuff?
I tend to do that for card games. Before Netrunner died, which I really loved, before that game kind of died off, or after that rather, I really pursued, and I'm still pursuing, Lightseekers. Lightseekers by PlayFusion, who also do Warhammer Sigmar Champions.
Is that the Toys to Life kind of game?
But actually, they're moving away from that because they found that with Toys R Us going down the tubes, they found the toys aren't selling as well, so they're focusing more on the card game and the app that they're doing. And it's just a phenomenal wee game. I cannot rate it more highly because it's such a low barrier to entry, yet the joy I get out of it, the value for money I get out of a collector's card game is very high. Because I can go home and play it on my app, I can walk down the street and play it on my app, I can sit and play with my friends, I can play with my partner, because the barrier to entry is so low that she will pay, even though she's not specifically a gamer. So for me, card games wise, I absolutely adore Lightseekers. Board games wise, there's a few I've really enjoyed. I always go back to Seasons though. Seasons is a great wee game. And it's 2014, so it's like 4 years old, something like that, 5 years old.
It's ancient now.
It is now, yeah, considering how many games have come out, you know. But yeah, absolutely. I still go back to it because I really like drafting and I really like the sort of resource management of it. So that kind of tickles me as well. So.
Just going back to Lightseekers, what do you actually do in Lightseekers? Because it's like, you can say it was a card game, but is it close to Magic? Is it like Destiny? What kind of game are you talking about? I am actually downloading it on the Google Play Store as we speak. So
you should totally play it. It's not alien, but it's very different to other card games, and that's one of the favourite things about it.
Right.
So, firstly, there is no turn the card sideways mechanic. There's no tap mechanic. So it's not a Magic clone in that sense. So that's great. I love that. It's got its own system involving buffs. Now, buffs are cards that stay in play, and they're either permanent buffs that stay in play and do their thing, or they rotate. They rotate at the start of the turn. And when they rotate, they kick in a different effect. And that creates this whole kind of chain in your head, thinking, right, if that's going to rotate, what's going to happen next turn when it rotates to its next side? So you've got all these kind of, like, it's almost like a clock. You're managing different clock faces going round the cards. So it's really cool. Without going into it, without the cards in front of me, it might be trickier to explain, but essentially it takes 5 minutes to demo. It's very quick. And it's very simple. You've got a life total on your hero. You're trying to reduce the other hero to 0. And you've got all the usual cards, like you've got 2 actions a turn, so you can either play an attack card and it does its effect immediately. You can play a defend card and it does its effect immediately. Or you can play a buff card and it kind of has this rotating effect where it applies its effects at different turns. Okay. The other really cool thing about the game is that rather than start drawing a card at the start of your turn, you don't automatically draw cards. So you have to, or you can choose to not take actions in your turn. So you can take 2 actions in your turn, and if you choose to forgo those, you draw 2 cards at the end of your turn. If you only take 1 action in your turn and you forgo one of your other actions, you draw 1 card at the end of your turn. So that way you are choosing when to draw. Effectively, when you need those cards, you will simply pass your turn and draw 2 cards, for example. So that's really nice because you're not like drawing off the top and praying and hoping it's the card you need. You're drawing the 2 cards and then you're sitting thinking, right, what am I going to do next turn? Which also makes the game a little bit faster. It's just speedier, if you know what I mean, because you're doing a lot of the thinking in your opponent's turn.
Yeah.
So that's really nice about it as well. It also plays multiplayer. You can draft it. You can do everything you could with, say, Magic, pretty much. I just think it's got a lot of scope, and I'm all in as far as Lightseekers is. I'm really behind PlayFusion as a company, because everything they've done so far is amazing, and also just the game. The game's phenomenal.
It seems interesting that it's one of these things I think that slipped by the wayside, and I think it slipped by the wayside because it was originally a Toys to Life kind of model, and I remember seeing it. I remember seeing it. I think actually, friend of the show, Vader Van Oden, did a series with his son where they played kind of Lightseekers, and they were very much kind of, they do a lot of toys and games kind of stuff, and I remember seeing that and going, that was really, really interesting. I remember him talking about it. They're talking about, was it the R-Wing game, which is another Toys to Life game, but I think the same, I think as you rightly said, with things like Toys R Us kind of failing, and kids aren't able to get their hands and demonstrate and actually see something in action, sometimes, it just kind of disappears. So I'm going to try this game, and I technically have your address, so I know where you live. So if it's not great,
you can always, you can just like send me letters and stuff.
I'm going to come round the cafe.
Anyway. But in all seriousness, though, with regards, like, a brief history of Lightseekers is fascinating, because unlike other card games as well, it didn't just like explode onto the scene. Most card games, they have this big release and then it dies off. Lightseekers, like you say, I mean, it's been tied to the toys, but also it's always hummed under the radar slightly, and I'm just going to give it time, because I think, like I say, I think it's a great product, and I think it will explode at some point pretty soon, I reckon. Maybe once they've had a wee bit more exposure from the sister game, Warhammer Age of Sigmar Champions. Yeah,
because I saw that, and is that not share kind of similar mechanics in terms of the rotating cards?
Yes.
And the kind of the mechanism from there, because when you said that, I said, what was it? John and Simon were playing something the other day. I think it was about 4 or 5 weeks, and it was the release of that. They had the big, huge box they had bought with a multitude of cards, and they were just explaining, and they saying, but you just rotate the card, and then it gets you a different power, and then it's brilliant and fantastic. And it's like, I'm wondering if it's going to be a case that, well, you know how Pokemon is sometimes connected to Magic, and people say, well, a lot of people play Pokemon first and then they move to Magic, and then people sometimes play Pokemon as a kind of a lighter version of Magic when they're playing with their kids.
Yes.
I'm wondering if that is going to be the same with, Lightseekers, if people that are playing the kind of the Age of Sigmar Champions are going to say, well, I can actually play Lightseekers, and it's in a very, very kind of similar vein.
I hope so. They are similar, definitely. But sorry, go ahead.
No. I mean, you sound like not a champion of Sigmar, but a champion of Lightseekers.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we stock Sigmar. We like Sigmar. It's good. One of the things I don't stock in my store is miniatures games. So if I stocked more Games Workshop stuff, I'm sure I would love Sigmar. But for me, Lightseekers was baby number one. I mean, when it came out at UK Games Expo, not this year, but the year prior, 2017. And when it came out, I was just flabbergasted, fascinated with the game. And 2 weeks later, they released it very quietly to one of my suppliers, and I just went all in on it. And then, after I went all in on it, I told all the other store owners I said to them, guys, you need to be stocking this game. And then, thankfully, with a wee bit of persuasion from me and PlayFusion, they all tried it out and stuff, and some of them are still pushing it and stuff. So, definitely, I'm very much a champion for Lightseekers.
So you can play the card alongside the app at the same time, then, or is the app kind of supplement, or is the app a separate entity altogether?
It's more just a separate way to play. So you can, kind of like Pokemon. Pokemon has the card game, and it has the app online where you can play Pokemon. It's exactly the same. You scan the key difference though is that with your physical cards you've got and you've bought, you get extra value at those because you can scan them into your app and use them. Whereas in Pokemon, you would need a separate booster little thing card in the booster to scan. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think the fact that you're getting double duty out of Lightseekers is just very clever.
Yeah, and I continually see the argument about tying in kind of board games or the analog experience into the digital experience, and how,
Sure.
you get board games that use apps, and you get board games that become apps, and it's like kind of marrying the two together, so you can kind of like, it's worthwhile purchasing the card game if you've got the app, because having the cards themselves is going to kind of add value.
Exactly.
Which is kind of cool. For yourself, what was the moment where you said, right, I'm getting all this stuff, I need an idea? I take it you kind of were working yourself silly in a job, and then at some point, or you went and studied, and then at some point you went, actually, what's my way forward? What's my direction? And then I take it Settlers kind of came off the back of that. I mean, what was the story behind actually to where you are today?
There's a lot of different factors going on there, actually. Bear with me, because it's a bit of a story, but I think it's interesting because my story is similar, but it's slightly different to a lot of other game store owner stories. My story for game shop ownership really starts in 2012. What happened was I was an ESOL teacher in Japan for 2 years. And right. I came back from Japan to this country, and of course, no one really needs an ESOL teacher. Just for reference, an ESOL teacher being someone who teaches English as a foreign language in that country. English speakers don't need an English teacher. So I tried to pursue that.
Surprised, though.
Actually, now I think about it, no, definitely. I mean,
probably maybe it's another idea. Don't say that.
no, I shouldn't. But no, I'm only joking. But with regards to that, when I opened the store, I opened in 2014, and that was after coming back in 2012, trying different things. I tried the ESOL career elsewhere. I tried working in different jobs, also different game shops in some cases. I've had very different, different jobs throughout, and at the same time, while I was kind of looking for different jobs, trying different jobs, I to keep myself motivated, what I did is I really wanted to push tabletop gaming forward, because when I came back from Japan, I found that despite Big Bang Theory being big, despite all these other huge factors being big, Marvel movies and stuff, game shops and games clubs and stuff were just they just weren't there from what I saw.
No.
So at the time, anyway, right back in 2012. So what I did is I just created a very simple Facebook group and said to people, hey guys, I'm literally going to go do a tour of as many game shop groups and game shops and stuff that I can find, and I'm going to talk to you. And if I can get you on Facebook and actually advertising yourself to other like-minded people, maybe that will help grow each other. And so that's what I did. I did that until about 2013, and we noticed that people were starting to talk to each other. A lot of groups and stuff used to just be on Yahoo groups and things like that, or forums, and that just wasn't out there. It wasn't mainstream. It wasn't adequate in my eyes. And eventually what that led to was there was no games club in South Lanarkshire, so that led to me forming Lanarkshire Gamers. So when I formed Lanarkshire Gamers back, I want to say 2013, I think 6 of us showed up, and then very quickly 6 became 9, and then 15, and then 20, and then 40. So the game club thing just exploded. Lanarkshire Gamers became huge very quick. So to the point where we created a second club, and then that second club created a third club. For all sorts of reasons. It became a Netrunner club, So there was all these crazy things going on with gaming. And then I realized to myself, well, this is something I'm passionate about, and my current career isn't working. I might as well, if I really believe in growing gaming, rather than just being a gamer selling to other gamers, I said to myself, I'm going to have to plant a flag in South Lanarkshire and go, non-gamers, come here and play. And that's what led to the birth of Settlers.
What led to the naming of it? Because everybody that's going to be saying the word Settlers is going to be going, oh, Catan! And it's going to say, bless you. What did you say your name was? Settlers. Oh, Catan! Excuse me.
No, that's cool. I think actually there's 3 main reasons why we called the shop Settlers, or why I called the shop Settlers. The first one is the definite, obvious homage to Settlers of Catan. And we wanted to give Settlers its respect. in its due. Settlers was one of the first sort of light Euro games or lighter strategy games that came across the pond or came across to us and just really got people into gaming. So Settlers is due that respect. We all hail Settlers of Catan, and
all hail,
all hail. But then there were two other main reasons. One was that Settlers is an idea I want for the shop. I want people who aren't necessarily gamers, visitors, explorers, whatever you want to call them, people who pop in off the street who have no idea what this stuff is, but I want them to come in and form a community. I want them to settle in a place on one of our tables and have fun and meet new people who are friendly because they're all there for the same purpose. They all want a game, or they all want to get into comics, so they all want to just chill out and have a good time. So that was the kind of second reason. And the third reason, which ties in nicely from what I said earlier about my personal life, was that my personal life wasn't settled. I had no career at that time. I had nothing really pushing me forward. So for me, it was kind of a dream on my part that I want to settle. I wanted to settle at the time, and I wanted to settle down. And thankfully, for almost 5 years on now that we've been in the business, I can say that, we're doing okay, and I feel a lot more settled in my career. And I, a little plug for the shop. I want to keep it growing and going strong. So, yeah.
That's cool. I also realise it's a 1980s kind of indigestion tablet as well. So I was wondering if you ever got the confusion of people coming in going, oh, my stomach's just, you know what I mean? If it's not one end, it's the other. And I was just wondering, I heard this is a good place where you can settle our stomach, and you go, Catan, sir?
Beg pardon? Well, we sell coffees, madam. No, absolutely. We've had that once, actually. And we had it once. And what happens is when you're in business and you're writing business plans for people, and you're showing them to people and trying to get funding and all sorts and all this jazz and convince people that it's a goer of an idea, what you tend to find is people ask you all sorts of weird questions. And they say, Settlers, see for your brand, is that not going to get confused with like Wendy's and stuff like that? And I had to answer that question. And I'm sitting there like, well, I hear what you're saying, but this is what it actually means. And I would give them the explanation that I just kind of gave you, and just say, this is what it means to us as a store. But thankfully, it's only ever been confused that one time, thankfully.
When you're going for like, kind of funding and assistance and stuff like that, was it difficult to kind of persuade the vision? I mean, I don't know how you got set up, if you got through private funding or if you went through kind of finance options or stuff like that. But was it, because it would have been it would have been unusual in 2012, let alone nowadays. I mean, was it a difficult thing to kind of sell? I take it, small business advisors and everybody like that would have been, what, like Monopoly?
Exactly. That's exactly what they did. It's exactly what they did. Yeah, exactly. So you would, so for example, what would happen is, firstly, you have to go in with some of your own money if you want any funding. I mean, no one's going to fund you if you're not willing to put some of your own money in. So once you get that out of the way, and then you start getting those creeping questions like, so board games, do you mean Monopoly? And that's exactly what they would say. And you'd be like, yes, but also this, but also that. Have you heard of Dungeons and Dragons, sir? Do you know what a Games Workshop is? And then they would go, oh yeah, do you play Blood Bowl? And you'd be like, yeah, I totally play Blood Bowl. And then that would really, people would start wiring the neurons, and they'd start getting things a wee bit more. Because, to be fair, while I wouldn't say my shop is all about Monopoly, we certainly have it in the games archive for people to play if that's what they want to do. It's there, it's an option. It's not a game I'd necessarily recommend, but it's there if you want it, and as I say, we're there to cater to anyone who wants to come in and try this sort of stuff. So that's definitely part and parcel of that. But with regards to convincing people and talking to people who don't know what it's about, one quick story we had was there was a chat for the council. I was talking about renting a unit because the council, where we are, it's in a what do you call it? I don't even remember what it's called now. It's like a sort of safe zone, a council zone, where a regeneration area. That's the word I'm looking for. And the council take charge of that. And so as a result, to work with him, you go in, you talk to someone for the council, and the chap who's on a project team for that was like, okay, I don't know anything about this, but it sounds really interesting, and I can clearly see you're very passionate. Let me get my friend who actually knows about this stuff, and we're going to come and have a sit down and talk about it. So 4 meetings later with this chap and his friend, they went, oh yeah, it's a geek shop. Yeah, go for it. And that was all he needed to go, like, rubber stamp what we needed to do. Once he knew it was like, oh yeah, Game of Thrones is really big right now. Yeah, totally. This is a goer. Go for it. So once we had that, he had, like, his friend confirm to him what we were. He was like, you know what, I don't get this stuff. I go mountain climbing at the weekends, but you know what, I'll give it a try. And that was all it took. At least for that side of things to kind of progress. There were other issues, obviously, but that's the kind of general sort of level of expectation you can expect when you are trying to change and give exposure to something that is relatively unknown.
You've got the cafe up and running, okay? Is it difficult to keep a balance between, because one of the things I see again and again and again, and I usually see them within kind of board game groups on Facebook, is that, I went into a friendly local game shop the other day and they were anything but friendly. They chased me out the door with their dog and they threw things at me and you know what I mean, and they put a banana spear in my way so that when I tried to go out the door, I slipped upon my bum and I cried to mummy on the way home. And there's this kind of like this demonization. I mean, I've seen, I have seen this a few times of folks saying, well, I'm going to go and buy from, the big river in the jungle because, I prefer to shop there kind of thing, as opposed to going and seeing this person. I went in there the other day and they were like burning somebody at the cross, for goodness sake, kind of thing. And then I'm just thinking, well, you've kind of got that, but did you have to balance up kind of being a retail outlet with being the cafe? Because one of the things I do see about the retail, the friendly local game store, is it's a place where people store games. It's like a bookshop. The guy that owns the bookshop doesn't want to sell you the books because that's where he keeps his collection, kind of thing. But was it difficult to kind of get a balance between making sure you're retailing to people and making sure that you're kind of, not just having people come in and just hang around and not spend any money?
There's a couple of really good questions in there, because there's a discussion about diversity there, about I'll explain what I mean in a wee second, but there's also that whole customer service thing going on. So the customer service side of things, I totally understand. For some people, certainly, some people are online shoppers. That's what they want. They want it at the cheapest price for whatever reason. That's totally fine. I get that. Maybe we as the friendly local game store don't necessarily fulfill their needs. And then they go and they get really angry, expecting to have their needs fulfilled, and they go, well, I can just get it cheaper elsewhere, and they go on a big rant and that's fine. Customers can do that. That's fine. Customers know their needs, better than I could ever hope to. The thing is, sometimes customers think that their needs are tied to a certain shop because maybe they've heard how great and cool friendly local game stores are, but in actual fact, they're probably more of an online shopper. So that's just a part and parcel of resale. You're not going to satisfy every customer, unfortunately, as much as we'd love to. Some people just have needs that maybe they thought we could satisfy, but it wasn't there. That's just one of those things for any FLGS, I think, or for any retailer for that matter.
Well, there's a Games Workshop kind of style of selling, and I'll never understand that until kind of now when I'm facing it. I used to hate going to Games Workshop. I hated going into you. I just didn't like stepping inside, because I'd be going in and I'd be saying, right, okay, there's Advanced Hero Quest, and oh look, there's an expansion for normal Hero Quest, and then you'd get somebody coming up to you and being friendly.
How dare they? How dare they be friendly?
I didn't get. Well, I'm a guy, right? I'll tell you what. If I'm going in and I'm buying shoes, right? I'm going in. I'm going right. You got these in a 10, and they'll bring them out in a 10, and then I'll try them on. and if they're fine, and if they're not more than, say, 60 quid, then you've got a deal. There you go, money's gone. I was into this environment where people wanted to have discussions and people wanted to find out more about what I was wanting to do. And I wasn't sure about that. That was very kind of alien. Looking back now, I could see it was like Games Workshop themselves were probably an awful lot ahead of their time. They were using what you would call nowadays a consultative approach to selling. They're almost selling to you like you were walking in to buy a car. You were getting the same kind of sales guy, kind of how you doing, what you're going to be using this for. Is it for practical? Are you thinking of storming the Citadel? You know, do you prefer to use the scout thing? Are you more an ultramarine? You look a little bit like a blood angel to me. All hail the Emperor, another 10,000 years kind of thing. But I look at it now and I says, you know, at the time I was like, people used to take the Michael out of Games Workshop folk because they were very passionate, but they were just trying to be friendly. And now I look back on it and I'm just what I say, you know, sorry, Gavin.
You know,
for being a bit abrupt with you.
You've touched on a lot of really good points there. I think what Games Workshop's approach there is really, they've recognised that they are a specialty retailer, as are we. And they've recognised that because they're a specialty retailer, they need to give that specialty service and narrow things down and make sure the customer gets exactly what they want. Yeah. Whereas compare that to nowadays, where a lot of times you go into a shop and you get either self-service, no service, or really poor service. So really, I mean, a lot of shops nowadays you won't be spoken to. You walk into and you're expected to kind of choose things on your own. And there's nothing wrong with that, I guess, because, you know, the internet's kind of taught us to be self-sustainable that way. But that's the opposite of what a lot of people expect. And people don't often realise, they think they're walking into a retail shop, but actually when you walk into a shop like mine, you're walking into a specialty retail shop that's got it's an Aladdin's cave with lots of answers and cool things that you can find. So there's that factor going on as well. But with regards to Games Workshop, bearing in mind, Games Workshop also went through a lot of different stages in their history. They did. So, for example, they had the red stage where everything was energy, energy, go, 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 blood angels, paint it red ones go faster, red dice. So Games Workshop had that phase, you know? Whereas now we're in the Warhammer phase where everything's a Warhammer shop and they've rebranded very cleverly.
Black. It's all kind of dark and it's a bit, you know, so you left somebody's tell Gavin to put the lights on, will you? Can't see a thing.
Yeah, the goth phase. No, I know. To be fair, I think that's a very clever move on Games Workshop's part. They've set themselves aside from comic shops, game shops, and they're leveraging their intellectual property as the Warhammer store. People, mums and dads, refer to them as the Warhammer store. You know, so I think that's actually a very clever move on their part. But yeah, sorry. You there was another point you mentioned that was really good, and I wanted to touch on it. It was about. I can't remember. Sorry, it's escaped me. But
are you trying to offer an experience then? Is this what you're trying to do? You're not trying to offer kind of like retail. Are you trying to go in with people and offer them an experience so that when they step in the door through Settlers, they're not really feeling like they're being kind of sold to? They're settling in, they're trying a game, and at the end of it, then they might just turn around and say, kind of it, because this is what people are talking about. It's like, well, this is why people are saying that friendly local game stores maybe aren't doing as well as they are, because there is the guy around the counter and there's not the interactivity. Are you almost kind of like ushering people in as kind of like, I've never played a card game before, to ushering people out with like a core deck and a couple of boosters, and they're happy to give you the money because you've sat down and spent half an hour with them, showing them how it actually works and how they actually get things going, and they've had a cup of tea at the same time?
I think so, but I mean, there's a lot of really good. See, none of my answers are going to be straightforward, which is probably good. But I mean, with regards to experience selling, yes, 100%. If you're competing with online, for example, the Great River in the Sky we talked about earlier with the Jungle, those guys are cheaper for a number of reasons. And anyone who's not in that bracket is not going to compete on price. Yeah. So in a pure brass tack sense, in a pure business sense, it does not make sense for us to try to compete on price. So we have to offer something else. We need to have a reason for existence. Otherwise, you know, why are we doing this? So for me, our reason of existence, Settlers' reasons of existence certainly, is to offer an experience, not only for me anyway, to offer an experience to everyone, whereas some local game stores are more specialized, so they're even more looking to offer the experience to people who already know this kind of stuff, and that's just something other local game stores might take a stand on. That's up to them how they want to do things. But for settlers, certainly it's to be able to show people the way, but also, to show them the way and give them a community if that's what they want. It's also to make sure that they're being pointed in the right direction. So rather than, running up to one of my staff, for example, or myself, rather than running up to you as you enter the door and going, red ones go faster, buy red dice, rather than doing that kind of stuff, which isn't true of Games Workshop, to be fair. That was a phase.
I think they've done extraordinarily well for where they are, because the fact is, I'm talking about a good 25 years ago, about a retail outlet that's still going. Yes. So whatever you say about them, however you slag them off, whatever gripes you have about them, they're still there. They're still trading. They're like Madonna. They keep inventing themselves. They've maybe had a couple of dodgy albums. They had that animated video thing that didn't go down that quite well, but we're still there. They've maybe not been pulled down the stairs by a cape.
Exactly.
But
I
they're
totally agree.
They're still thriving.
I totally agree. And although we might make jokes and stuff about them, I'd like to think they're done with a wee bit of love and care, because at the end of the day, a lot of us grew up with Games Workshop, But I don't want to single Games Workshop out. I just use that as an example, because I think at least my staff are trained to basically wait. Yeah. So you say hello, everyone gets a hello. If they don't, my staff have done something wrong. Yeah. And then essentially, once everyone gets a hello, what we expect is either the customer will kind of guide us to what they want. So the customer will stand in a certain area of the shop. Maybe they'll stand next to the comic books. Maybe they'll come straight up to the till and ask for a demonstration. Maybe they'll want a coffee. Maybe they'll walk up to the games, have a browse at the games. And then that's the point where we'll be able to go up and talk to them and say, hey, how you doing? If you need a hand, give me a shout. And if they want to elaborate, they can elaborate. If they don't want to talk to us, no harm, no foul. I'll go. I mean, I'm a busy man. I'll go find something else to do. That's no problem. But as long as we are there for the customer and we are able to help them, because like we say, there's such a specialised need. There's so many different things that I sell now that there's no possible way I could read your mind and anticipate that you're going to walk into my shop and want X, Y, or Z. There's so many things that I can offer someone, especially since we're trying to give an experience. There's so many ways to give different people an experience. And if anything, actually, I think there's more pitfalls to that over diversification, where you have too many things going on. There's actually pitfalls to that. So that's something that if any other FLGS owners or people who have an interest in opening a store like that have questions about, I would just warn them not to over diversify. And diversification is certainly a hot topic amongst FLGS owners at the moment. There's a lot going on there for a number of reasons.
Well, I mean, we've spoken to Games Quest a couple of times, and they're quite open in saying that, entering the retail market into board games is just, it's a bloody battlefield that unless you're willing to kind of make minimum margin on it, it's a really, really difficult thing to do. And the fact is that, and that interview will be out, is that, Nigel himself, they are opening up their own board game cafes because they've seen the value in offering an experience that does end up in a kind of a transaction, which is where it is.
There's a couple of good books actually I'd like to recommend at this point. If you're thinking about opening a game shop, there's a book by a very experienced retailer, 15 years in the game. His name is Gary Ray. He runs a store called Black Diamond Games in Sacramento, or California, I think it's Sacramento. And he has a book called FLGS, Friendly Local Game Store. How to Make a Middle Class Income. Yeah, which is exactly as low key as you might think it should be, because that is exactly what being an FLGS owner is. You're not selling the dream. You're not having this massive multi-million empire. You're there to make a middle class income and enjoy your life. And so that's a really, really good book for anyone who's interested about why the game trade is tricky and why it costs much. A quick anecdote from that book, for example, is the return on investment for retail is really quite low for a retail owner, particularly for tabletop games. So that's one factor that leads into that, without getting into the whole book. Yeah. The second book I'd like to recommend is, because we've discussed experience in such a really key way, I'd really like to recommend a book that's nothing to do with tabletop games. It's called The Experience Economy.
All right.
In that book, it lays out a few. Basically, the first chapter is all you need to read, because the rest of the book is just him filling out the book with examples of his theory. And the theory is, it's like a 4-tiered graph, a line graph. And the first tier is commodity. If you're selling a commodity, it's very cheap and low end, and you don't need to command a huge price for a commodity, so you can sell them cheap. Yeah. In my eyes, games are not a commodity good, but for some customers they are, so they want them cheap. Yeah. The next stage would be like a service level, so you're expecting good service, but there's more effort in that service. So because there's more effort in that service, you can command more of a price. So the theory goes. The third level always escapes me, but the fourth level, the one I'm interested in, is the experience level. So let's say I go to Alton Towers and I go with my kids. I don't have any, but let's say I go with my imaginary kids, and they ride the Nemesis or whatever cool ride.
That'd be so funny, you go to the rides.
Just like empty stuff.
Just empty like seats. Go there. I go, do you mind, that one's taken and I paid for it, thanks very much.
And it's a photo of me with my thumbs up.
Your imaginary arm round someday.
This is my beautiful invisible wife. So that, but what they do at Alton Towers, for example, is that they, or any of these other kind of roller coaster type places, is that they're able to command, let's say, £10 for a photograph. Now, why is someone going to pay £10 for a photograph? Well, they're going to do it as a memento of their experience.
Yes.
So what we are in the business of is creating experiences and trying to leverage, a price for that. Let's be brutally honest. I want to get paid. So, how do I create a memento of their experience? One of the disconnects, I believe, anyway, at least in our industry, is that a lot of us are trying to create a memento of the experience with a commodity good. For example, a booster pack of Magic. So, I am creating these great experiences, but I'm only getting paid a commodity good price. Yeah. But that is a whole other discussion. But essentially, those two books are really, really good starting points for any retailer who's looking to get into the FLGS market. But seriously, if anyone's listening and they are interested in becoming a friendly local game shop of any sort of description, please get in touch. Talk to me. I'm happy to give you as little or as much advice as I can give you. I'm only 4 years in the game, so I'm not a giant yet, but there are people I know who have been in the game for like 30, 40 years, and I can maybe get some advice from them to pass on to you.
Are you doing online, or is online something that you would consider dabbling in but would never kind of want to do?
That's a very timely question. I've been in the game 4 years, and I haven't done it online yet. However, now, basically what I did literally this month is I completed my store, as it were. So I hit level 4, and I've completed my store. My store is full. I cannot add anything more to my store. And what I would like to do now is, in between creating robust systems and using technology to do things, next year, I think you can safely expect, either next year or the year later, an online website from us.
Awesome. If people want to find you, not only on the internet webs, but also if they're playing a bit of Pokemon Go, and they're stotting about Lanarkshire.
Sure.
Where can we find you? Not only on the internet webs, but on the wide web of world.
The wide web of world. That's like the invisible partner in the roller coaster. On the internet, we are strictly focused on Facebook at the moment, and the reason for that is purely because we can organise events there very, very well. So again, tying back into that experience of event running. So we're on Facebook. We are Settlers Hamilton on Facebook. Please check us out. See what you think. Check out our photos and stuff. See if you think it's for you. By all means, get in touch if there's anything you'd like to point out, or even just get in touch to say hello. So there's that on Facebook. We are also on Twitter, but we don't really have a huge presence there. We are also on Instagram. Loads of pictures, including pictures of my dog, are on there. We also have so that's Facebook and online and all that jazz. We're on all the social media pretty much. With regards to our physical presence, we are in Hamilton, South Lanarkshire. If you want to check out the postcode, our postcode is ML36BU. But alternatively, if you just want to get to us and pop in, go to Hamilton Central train station, get off there, walk down the road for maybe 5 minutes, and you'll see us on the way towards Asda in Hamilton. We're very close to Asda in Hamilton. Awesome. If you're on Pokemon Go, just hit all the Pokestops. We're on a really good Pokemon Go route, actually. I play Pokemon Go myself, so...
there you go.
So if you want to talk about Pokemon Go, just drop us a line. Feel free.
Excellent. And what we'll do is we'll make sure we put all of those links and that address kind of like in the show notes so that we have notes to show. I've got one more question for you. Mm-hmm. An evil... local emporium has set up shop some 5 minutes down the road from you.
Dun, dun, dun.
They have a twiddly moustache. There is an evil glint in their eye. Unfortunately, they're not very, very careful with, they smoke an evil cigar. So at the end of the night, one night, they were smoking their evil cigar and they're ha and swishing their cape. And they flick it behind them and it lands inside their shop.
Oh.
Unfortunately, sticking something flammable into a place full of cardboard is only naturally going to cause one certain event, which is the shop starts to go on fire, okay?
That's terrible.
Because it's an evil, dastardly organisation, it actually has managed to amass a board game collection of some volume with first editions, second editions, anything at all. You have the ability to rush in because there's a sprinkler system. The place isn't going to burn to the ground. However, the sprinkler system's probably going to activate in about 3 minutes, and that means the entire collection is going to get soaked. Shazz, you have the choice to go in and rescue 3 board games or card games or anything to do with tabletop. What are the 3 things that you go in and rescue? It can be anything at all.
Oh, that's so tricky. That's so tricky. I'd probably pick up his top hat first, because that's important. Top hats are cool. Then I would, let me think, what would I pick up? If there was a magic binder in there, there's a strong chance I would pick up a magic binder in there. Mostly just to give it back to him. That would be so sad losing your magic collection. And out of nostalgia, I would probably grab the old MB games like Hero Quest and Space Crusade and stuff like that. Just because they're an absolute nightmare to get nowadays.
Okay. So, Magic, Hero Quest, and Space Crusade.
Magic, particularly because there's probably a lot of value in there, but also people have memories of those things, and it might be evil, but no one wants to wish that on an evil competitor burning down their Magic collection. That's rough.
It's such a typical answer I would expect from you after knowing you for like all of a couple of hours, that you would be that lovely and that generous about, the evil man who's planning to dominate your destiny. But of course you're going to answer like that. If he's not done it within 5 minutes and destroyed me, then chances are I'm going to stick around. So
exactly. He can try his best, but I'll not take his magic collection from him. That's rough.
Absolutely. This has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Your questions have been phenomenal. Also, I'd just like to point out, if you do have any more of your insightful questions, they have been very, very helpful, because I could have went on a lot longer answering them. Honestly, please let me know. It's been a pleasure.
There is only 2 more things to do.
Okay.
But there's actually 3 more things to do. I've got to tell people where they can find us. You know where to find us. We didn't have a place of bricks and mortar, unlike the wonderful Shazz here. But however, if you go onto Twitter, if you go onto Instagram, if you go onto Facebook, you search for We're Not Wizards, thou shall find us. If you want to find our website, we'renotwizards.com. If you want to find our blog, it's we'renotwizards.blogspot.com. If you want to find us across the various podcast catchers, you can do so. Thou shall find us on Spotify and Stitcher and Spreaker and Acast and Podknife and Podbean itself. Podbean are fantastic. They automatically put our shows onto YouTube so people can listen to us on YouTube, which is just a strange concept, but that's fine. If you like us an awful lot, then please consider jumping onto Apple Podcasts and dropping us a rating or a review and a subscription. And as we say, if you are going to be giving us a rating or a review, don't give us 10 stars because it makes us big-headed. But don't give us 1 star because it makes us cry. Give us something in the middle, like a 5 because it's average. And we're just a little bit average.
Aim for the mediocrity. Aim for mediocrity.
Every single time, you know. I mean, what's the point? If you aim for the moon and if you hit the moon, you're going to die because you've not got a spacesuit on.
Well, I mean, that's why I'm an FLGS owner. We all aim for mediocrity. I mean, that's what it is. So aim for the middle, guys.
That's it. But the one person who's not been average is the wonderful, the rather fantastic, the very overly friendly, extremely helpful, extremely happy
Janet Jackson.
Shazz. Janet Jackson.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much for coming. There's only, as I say, there's only 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Shazz?
Nah.
And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Shaheen. Say goodbye.
Bye.
It's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, and if you fancy getting out and about and you're in Hamilton and you're saying it must nip down to Asda because I need to get myself some tea bags, don't bother getting your tea bags. You know, get out of the train station, you know, go to Settlers and they get your tea for you, but you can also, like, maybe play a game, play something that you've not played before, make some new friends, you know. It's fantastic. But until the next time, goodbye.